We wouldn't see anything at the moment. As you can see, it's very, very choppy. Usually when you see crossings, it's very early in the morning when the sea is flat. Last weekend, there were 300 people that crossed over. In June, it was a record-breaking month. 2,000 people crossed over in the month of June. We did have some nice warm weather then. That tends to be when the crossings happen. So this summer, it could actually be a record if we do get, and I hope we do, a nice sunny July and August. We could see an increase in crossings coming over here, but today, nothing yet.
Ellie, for now, thanks very much. We'll check back in with you a bit later on. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Well, we're joined by Steve Elder-Simmons, Refugee and Migrants Director of Amnesty UK. Steve, what do you make of these tougher penalties in the rules?
Well, I mean, they're completely outrageous. This country is obligated, as are all countries, to provide protection to people fleeing persecution. And what our government is about to do is to seek to not fix our asylum system, actually to shut it down. There are no safe and legal routes for these people, just as there are generally no safe and legal routes for many people who must flee persecution. That is why refugee laws specifically prohibit penalising people for doing what they need to do, which is crossing borders without having permission in advance. And so I'm afraid what our government is about to do is to set itself as a pariah in the international community by turning its back on the obligations it shares with others.
Steve, you say that they're turning their back on the obligations to others, but one of Priti Patel's points was that, that they shouldn't come from a safe place. So if they come from somewhere like France, which is a safe place, why do they then need to come to the UK? I mean, surely that's a reasonable thing to say? They've left where they are, they've come to France. Why are they now getting a boat to the UK where they're already on safe territory?
Let's be absolutely clear. The people who make these journeys are not safe in France. France is a safe place for, as it happens, a very much larger number of people who claim asylum there and receive asylum there, very much larger than this country. But for a very small proportion of people who seek asylum in France, they cannot get into the French asylum system. They are left in squalor, often face violence, including from local police in northern France. And for a number of them, they also have family and communities here. So it is perfectly reasonable for them to seek asylum here rather than in France.
Sorry, Steve, why can't they do it the normal way then? If they're in France, surely they can apply for asylum in this country. I mean, I don't see what, you know, and then they also somehow come up with £10,000 to get across, which...
With respect, there is no opportunity to claim asylum in this country unless you get here first. Those are this country's rules. They've been this country's rules for some decades now. It is not possible to claim asylum in the UK unless you get here. And there are no rules permitting you to make any journey for the purpose of coming here to claim asylum. So the only thing is left are journeys like these, journeys which are not permitted, but they are the only means that you have to make the thing that you're entitled to do, which is claim asylum, but you must get here first.
I mean, do you not think that something needs to be done, though? I mean, are you saying that you should just leave it as it is and carry on? What are you proposing instead of some of the changes that Priti Patel has put forward?
Well, for example, it would be much more helpful if people could claim asylum in the UK from France or from other countries without having to make some of the extensive and dangerous journeys that they make and without putting money into the profits of people who exploit them, such as the smugglers that you mentioned. We'd be all for that. But simply saying that, no, if you travel here, then you will be punished and penalised and potentially cast out and refused asylum, even though you are entitled to it. And while at the same time making no effort to provide for people who seek to make claims in this country with the means to do so safely and without relying on smugglers, that I'm afraid is just sheer hypocrisy.
Steve, you say they're entitled to it, but the entitlement is once you've actually got permission to be in the country. The point is that these people are coming without legal right to be.
I'm really sorry. No, the entitlement is there in international law. It's been there for decades. This country even framed that international law. The entitlement is one that every person who flees persecution has to seek and receive asylum in another country, including this one. And by the way, this country receives very few refugees, including from across the Channel. So I'm sorry to say, no, this is these people's right, and I'm afraid it is this government that is turning its back, reneging on its obligations.
Well, I mean, I looked at the rules. It said that when you're in a safe country, that's the first port of call.
I'm sorry, please show me that rule, because I have not only studied this area of law, I practiced it for many, many years. The rule that you have said does not exist. The immigration rules are there on the website. You can read them. The rules in international law sit in the Refugee Convention. So, yes, please, take me through the rules that you're referring to. I'll happily go through them with you. It's perfectly clear what the rules are.
All right, well, I thought the rule, you said take you through the rules, so I thought the rule was that if you are in a safe country, that you should claim asylum in the first country, rather than moving around to find a country that... is that not the rule?
No, it is not the rule. Indeed, the Refugee Convention makes clear that that is not the rule, because otherwise, what would happen? We would not have a sharing responsibility. Responsibility would always fall, wouldn't it, on the one poor particular country that just happened to be closest to where people have to flee from. Countries like this one presumably would never receive people seeking asylum, because mercifully, France is not in a situation of torturing its citizens and needing people to flee from it. But we don't have that rule, because the responsibility is shared, and some people do, very few as it happens, but some people do seek asylum further afield, including here, where indeed many have family and community where they wish to be safe with.
Right, well, let's thank you for that, Steve. Anyway, I appreciate that, and thanks for clarifying that as well. That is the rule, but you know, something does need to be done about the asylum system anyway. Steve, thank you very much for joining us. That's Steve Velder-Simmers from Amnesty International, Amnesty UK.
Okay, let's have a look.